Welcome back to another episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. We're back with some more EDH gameplay, and this week we're featuring a list that was submitted by one of our patrons. So, thank you to our patron, Connor, for submitting it. So let's hop right in and see what everybody brought. First up is the submitted list of Halana and Alena, and it's being piloted by Jason. This is a really fun Gruul aggro deck that has a lot of +1/+1 counter synergy, and it plans to abuse its commander to make some big creatures. Jason keeps an opening hand of Forest, Mountain, Invigorating Hot Springs, Birds of Paradise, Grumgully, Iridescent Hornbeetle, and Quartzwood Crasher. Up next we have Matt on Zarek the Silent King. This mono black deck is an upgraded precon that focuses on artifacts and gaining a lot of value off of its commander's ability. Matt will keep an opening hand of 2 Swamps, a Jeweled Lotus, a Jet Medallion, Caged Sun, Lich Guard, and Cryptek. After Matt comes Ethan on Extus, Auric Overlord. Now this deck is all about Mardu tokens, and for the most part, Ethan is more interested in casting the backside of his commander than the front. I mean, come on, it's both removal and token generation. Ethan will keep an opening hand of Mountain, Godless Shrine, Orzhov Basilica, Plumb the Forbidden, Lingering Souls, Impact Trimmers, and Bastion of Remembrance. And last but not least is our brand new member of the channel, Brent on Krenko Mob Boss. And let's be honest, I'd be wasting my breath if I tried to explain this deck to you guys, because you all already know what it does. It makes a lot of goblins. The end. So, Brent will keep an opening hand of 2 Mountains, an Arcane Signet, Ruby Medallion, Valakut Awakening, Warren Instigator, and Dockside Extortionist. We're about to hop right into the gameplay, but before we do, go down and leave a comment for us, letting us know who you think is going to win this game. And while you're down there, don't forget to check out all our links in the description. We've got all the deck lists for you guys to check out, another channel for you guys to listen to our podcast, a Patreon link if you're wanting some exclusive benefits and a chance to help us out, and an affiliate link with Dragon Shield, so if you're looking to pick up any MTG products, be sure to check that out. And without further ado, let's hop right into the gameplay. Looks like Brent wins the die roll, and he'll say Mountain, go. Jason plays a Forest into a Birds of Paradise, and then he'll pass to Matt, who will play a Swamp into a Jeweled Lotus and cast a turn 1 Silent King. The turn is then passed to Ethan, who will play a tapped Godless Shrine and pass to Brent. Brent plays another Mountain, and then will cast Arcane Signet, and then pass to Jason, who will play a Mountain, and then tap for 3 and cast Invigorating Hot Springs. He'll then put a counter on his Birds of Paradise, and then pass the turn to Matt, who will play a Swamp, and then move to combat, and swing the Silent King at Jason. And after attacking, Matt mills Necron Overlord, Monumental Corruption, and a Swamp. And the Overlord is returned to hand. Matt will then cast a Jet Medallion, and then he'll pass the turn to Ethan, who will play a Mountain, then tap for 2 and cast Impact Trimmers, and then he'll pass the turn to Brent, who plays another Mountain, and then will tap for 2 and cast his own Medallion, a Ruby one this time. He'll then cast Warren Instigator, and then he'll pass the turn to Jason, who will start off by casting a Cultivate. He finds a Mountain tapped to the battlefield and a Forest to his hand. He'll then play the Forest as land for turn and cast a Hardened Scales. The turn is then passed to Matt, who will play a Swamp as land for turn, and then he'll move to combat and swing the Silent King at Brent. Attack trigger, and he'll mill an Animate Dead, a Staff of Domination, and a Scorpec Destroyer, and that one will go to his hand. And then Brent takes his 3 commander. Matt will then cast Necron Overlord, and then pass the turn to Ethan, who will shotgun a Sacred Foundry, and then he'll tap for 2 and cast Boros Signet, then pass the turn to Brent, who starts off by casting a 1-mana Dockside Extortionist. It'll resolve, and the ETB trigger will make him 7 treasure tokens. After this, he'll play Valakut Stoneforge tapped, and then he'll sacrifice 3 of his treasures to cast Krenko. After this, he'll tap for 2 and cast Thornbite Staff. It'll resolve, so he'll equip it to Krenko, and then he'll move to combat and swing his Instigator at Ethan. Ethan takes the damage, and there are 2 triggers. The first one puts in Conspicuous Snoop. This makes Brent reveal a Mountain, and then Brent has nothing to put in with the second trigger. He'll then just pass the turn to Jason, who starts off with a Rootbound Crag. He'll then tap for 5 mana and cast his Quartzwood Crasher. After it resolves, Jason removes a counter from his Springs to put 2 on the Crasher, which also gives it haste, so Jason will move to combat and full swing at Brent, who will just take all 9 damage, and then upon connecting, Jason makes an 8/8 green dinosaur with trample. After all this is said and done, Jason will pass the turn to Matt, who will immediately move to combat, and this time he swings 3 in the air at Ethan, who will just take the 3 commander. And then upon attacking, Matt will mill 3 cards, but unfortunately this time it's a Mind Stone, a Dark Ritual, and a Portal to Phyrexia, so he's not able to return anything to his hand. After this, Matt will tap for 3 mana and cast his Cryptek, and then he'll pass the turn to Ethan, who will stop on Instep to Swords to Plowshares Krenko. It'll resolve, so Brent gains 3 life, and then Ethan moves to his turn. He'll start off by tapping for 3 and casting Bastion of Remembrance, which will make a 1/1 on ETB, which will also trigger Impact Tremors. He'll then play Orzhov Basilica, bouncing a mountain to his hand, and then he'll pass the turn to Brent, who draws his mountain, and then reveals another mountain. He'll play the mountain he drew, and then he'll recast Krenko, and then pass the turn to Jason, who starts off by tapping for 1 red and casting Gamble. After tutoring, Jason will shuffle his hand, and Matt rolls a d4, and Jason has to discard the 3rd card in his hand, which is an Overwhelming Stampede, which he admits is what he tutored for. After this, Jason decides he wants his own cost reducer, so he casts Goblin and Archomancer. He'll also cast his commander, Halana and Alena, then he'll put 2 counters on them by removing 1 from his hot springs, and then he'll move to combat. They'll trigger, and he puts 5 counters on his 8/8 dinosaur. He'll then declare attacks, and he points his Quartzwood Crasher at Ethan, and then Halana and Alena, and his 13/13 dinosaur at Brent. Brent will block Halana and Alena with his Warren Instigator, and then he'll take 13, and then Ethan will take 8. And since Jason hit 2 different opponents with creatures with trample, he will get to make an 8/8 and a 13/13. The turn is then passed to Matt, who will immediately move to combat again and hit Jason in the air for 3 commander, and then he'll mill 3 cards. Those cards being a Swamp, an Out of the Tombs, and a Bolus's Citadel, so nothing back to the hand again. And then Matt will just pass the turn to Ethan, who will play his mountain again, and then he'll cast Revel in Riches. And then he'll pass the turn to Brent, who draws his mountain, and then reveals another mountain. After playing that mountain, he'll activate Krenko to make 3 goblins. He'll then equip the Thornbite Staff to Krenko, and Ethan will respond by Village Rightsing his 1/1 soldier away. This will trigger Bastion of Remembrance, and allow him to draw 2 cards, and then the equip will resolve. After this, Brent moves to combat and swings for 3 at Ethan, and then after damage happens, he'll pass the turn to Jason, who will play a Dowsing Dagger, giving Brent the 2 O2 plants, and then he'll equip Halana and Alena with the Dowsing Dagger, and then move to combat. They'll trigger, and he'll put 7 +1/+1 counters on his 8/8 dinosaur. Now onto attackers. Jason will swing his now 15/15 dinosaur at Ethan, Halana and Alena at Ethan, and Goblin and Archomancer at Ethan. This is exactly 23 damage. Continuing on, he will then point 2 13/13s at Brent, and an 8/8 at Matt. Now Matt does have a Saw in half in hand, and he considers hitting Halana and Alena with it to 1. Save Ethan, and 2. Prevent Dowsing Dagger from flipping. But let me explain why he does not do that. Upon destroying Halana and Alena, this will trigger Krenko 1 time. There's then the Legend rule, which will trigger them a 2nd time. With the Krenko trigger on the stack, Brent can then activate Krenko, untap him, and then activate him again, making more than enough blockers for him to survive this attack. Problem is, if he does that, Ethan will then get enough Revel in Riches triggers to win the game. So instead of doing that, Matt decides to play to his outs and let Ethan and Brent die, hoping he can top deck a board wipe. And so that's exactly what will happen. They pass through combat and move to damage. Brent and Ethan both die, and Matt takes 8. And Jason has a lot of combat damage triggers. First of all, Dowsing Dagger will flip, and then he'll make a 26/26 off Brent, a 15/15 off Ethan, and an 8/8 off Matt. Jesus Christ. The turn is then passed, and Matt prays a little prayer and peels the top card. He's quiet for a little while, and then he'll move to combat and swing for 3 in the air at Jason, who just takes it, and Matt will mill KCI, Agadine's Awakening, and a Tomb Blade. The Tomb Blade goes to his hand. Unfortunately though, Matt admits he did not find anything to save himself here, so he'll pack it up, and Jason does a funny little hand motion to signify swinging all out. So, there you have it. Jason is the winner. Congratulations, man, that was an awesome Battlecruiser deck. Well everyone, there you have it. That was honestly a really fun game from Halana and Alena, and I'm really happy to see that the patron submitted deck list won, and no shade to any of the other decks. Matt was unfortunately mana screwed on 3 lands the entire game, and I've seen Ethan's Mardu Token deck go off before. It just didn't perform as well this time. And everybody knows Krenko. If it got another turn or 2, it would have absolutely taken over the game. I also find it kind of funny that Ethan playing Revel in Riches actually sealed his fate. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching today. Let us know what you thought down in the comments below. Did you expect Halana and Alena to take this victory? If you're interested in us playing your deck list, be sure to join our Patreon. It's only the 2nd tier to be able to submit your deck list. We choose one at random every month. You can also participate in our polls, which will help us decide what kind of content and what decks we want to make in the future. Last week's video, the Memory Lane one, was actually decided by our patrons, so if you're interested in any of that, be sure to join. Check out all of our other links while you're down there too. We actually just got a new merch link if you want to get some shirts. But that's enough talking for now. I was just trying to stall to 10 minutes because this game actually ended up being much shorter than I expected. But as always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a smooth day.